Hello, and welcome to this evening's Hip Historian Virtual Happy Hour Tour. I am Brenda Holt with AARP Arizona. During the month of March, we will focus on providing resources to help consumers manage their debt and savings and provide trusted information to make the best financial decisions. AARP is your wise friend and a fierce defender of consumers' finances, and we are helping you manage money while fighting on your behalf to protect what you've earned. We are here for you, and we will help you navigate the challenging road ahead. Visit us at aarp.org/money or aarp.org/moneymap. AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence of over 38 million members and 900,000 right here in Arizona, AARP works to strengthen communities, and we advocate for what matters most to families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. We're glad you can join us this evening. I'll now turn things over to Marshall Shore.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folk, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, good evening. Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. Oh, excuse me. I am so happy you can be here with us. Oh my gosh, as we are getting ready for such an amazing show this evening. So, my name is Marshall Shore, and I am your host this evening. And, we've got a lot of stuff going on. So, today is April 21st, which is not just April 21st, but, back in the late 1880s, Arizona was in the middle of an eruption of violence, murder, mayhem, and it was something called the Pleasant Valley Wars. At the end of those, 18 men were dead, 4 were wounded, 1 was missing, never to be found. And in 1904, Edward Tewksbury, the last survivor of the Graham-Tewksbury feud, died. Now, this was kind of, I would say, our version of the Hatfield and McCoys, but it was more rooted in natural resources, a conflict between small ranchers and corporation ranchers, as well as race. So that all pretty much came to an end in 1904, kind of. So it also is National Chocolate Covered Cashew Day, which I think is kind of cool because, right after Easter, one of my favorite things for Easter are the Hershey's peanut butter cup eggs. But it's even more decadent, kind of post-Thanksgiving, to have cashew and chocolate. How delightful. It is also International Hemp Day. Now, Hemp Day falls right between Earth Day tomorrow and yesterday was 420. So it's kind of that connection between the two. Can be used for clothing, has been used for rope. Pretty much anything that's fibrous can be made out of hemp. It is also National Tea Day. So, have a little beverage to also go along with your chocolate-covered cashews. And I love the fact that today is National High Five Day. So it is a moment for us all to take and celebrate not just ourselves, but all those successes of people that we know around us. So high five to you all because it's National High Five Day. Now, what can you expect tonight if this is your first time watching? We're going to have a lot of fun. Now, we have some trivia going on. We have a little bit of Arizona music history. We also have From the Vault, which is something that you might not even know is there. We have a beverage, as well as a great guest. And so I am so happy you can join us for such a special evening. Now, if this is your first time watching, you might wonder, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, I said my name is Marshall Shore, but I'm also known as the Hip Historian. Now, you might wonder, what does that mean? That means I get to play a lot with Arizona history. And so, how did I get here? About 22 years ago, I was in Brooklyn, and I was in this beautiful Carnegie building, decided to trade all that and the snow for the wilds of the West. I started working in a little library in South Phoenix that had this rich oral tradition of the community. Now, we promptly moved into a 1956 ranch, and pretty much there's what my house looks like today, and there's my kitchen looks like today. Pretty much the best of the best for 1956 all-electric GE kitchen that matches the tile, the oven with no window, I might point out, as well as, the moment we got here, everyone kept saying, there's no history here. But I knew that wasn't true because every time I would go somewhere, whether it was on foot, on bike, in my car, I would come to face with so many amazing stories, people, places, things. And then there's that post-war boom. After World War II, all those GIs were relocating, in cases, many of them right here to Arizona, looking for a new way of life. And that's just what they got. And they changed a lot of things. Now, I'm also known as the Hip Historian, and so we have some events coming up. So in just a couple weeks, Arizona Tiki Oasis is going to be over at the Hotel Valley Ho. That's going to be 4 days of Polynesian kitsch, lots of loud Hawaiian shirts. At least I know what I'm wearing, but it's a lot of fun. As well as I've actually got to submit my slides for this May 4th. Which is a big Star Wars day. May the 4th be with you. But that is when they are doing Ignite, which is a style of presenting where you have 5 minutes, 20 slides that are timed to fire automatically. And I think there's 11 presenters. And so it's a great way to get a lot of ideas. And that's going to be taking place over at Scottsdale Center for Performing Arts. I know tickets are available. So if you go onto Scottsdale's site, you can find them there. Oh, yeah. And then also Saturday is the Urban Wine Walk downtown. So all kinds of fun stuff going on. Also next Tuesday, virtually, I am going to be doing a program with the City of Surprise on kind of Arizona vintage signs, a lighting to the future. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And if you go onto the City of Surprise, you can find out how to attend right there. Now, you'll notice I see many of you already found the chat. You can also, if you have something that you don't want to put in chat, or maybe you missed the chat, or you want to share a really great idea for a story or something, you can always reach out you can use Facebook, Instagram, email, even my website. So, it wouldn't be happy hour without a beverage. And PJ, we've done over 100 cocktails together. And he's always been having so much fun. And so I haven't done this in a while. So let's see if we can bring on my bartender. All right. So there is Silent Bob, my bartender. And so what we are having today, so PJ has packaged this, which is a gray cocktail, but it's called the Indie Pop Smash. And all I've got to do is I just take and pour it like that. And look, it's like perfectly measured out. And then he even did the garnish. So it's a little slice of lemon. Here, we'll put it over there so you can kind of see it a little bit better. So it's got a little lemon and some mint. Now, in this cocktail, we have Grand Canyon Distilling Bourbon, Jones Soda Berry Lemonade, fresh mint, wild huckleberry jam. Now, what I love is that all these ingredients have been independently sourced from local businesses with a focus very much on the local. And Smash really refers to a hint of smoked salt. I didn't know there was smoked salt in that. Oh, from proper provisions up in Flagstaff. So, all right. So now let's go back here. And so here's what PJ thinks a cocktail should look like. And there's a list of ingredients. I have to say, I'm quite with the mint. The mint does not work well on green screen. Oh, that's quite lovely. A little tang, almost like a sweet tart in a glass. How could that be a bad thing? It's not, in case you were wondering. All right, so now we are here at Little Arizona. So, I talk about, spending some time in New York, but, I really grew up in this little tiny town in Indiana of about 25 people. And I love small towns. And so I love being able to talk about places all across Arizona. So today we are going to be talking about a little town called Cibola, Arizona. It's in La Paz County. At one point it had a population of about 250. It's now, I think because it's not really just the town now, but it's kind of like the area. So there are 250 people there in terms of the census, but the number of people who actually live there is probably quite small because it's considered to be a ghost town. And it was founded back in the 1880s, actually 1860s. Now, Cibola was originally part of the ancestral traditional home of the Yuma tribe of the Colorado, Mojave, and let's see if I can pronounce this right, because someone just corrected me the other day on this. No. Everything I found online says Kachan, but she was pronouncing it Sehan tribe. And they were very much farmers using the river. It would flood, bring in all that amazing soil. And so they were using that for quite some time. Now, supposedly it is called Cibola. Now, Cibola, kind of the myth of the 7 cities of Cibola, a mythical land of gold that the Spanish felt that was somewhere in the Southwest. And so rumor has it, this may have been it, because really what brought this town was this discovery of gold and silver there. Started the mines. Now, it's also rumored that Wyatt Earp was sheriff for a short period of time here. And they started doing a canal to try and bring more fertile land, and that kind of failed. And as we all know, the mines failed. And so with all that irrigation and everything and all that great land, what did come out of it is if you go to Cibola, you can visit the National Wildlife Preserve, which I bet is really beautiful. I mean, just look at that. And that's Arizona. That's part of the fun thing of doing this, is exploring all these places that now I want to go, because we've got some amazing spots all over the state. All right, so now I'm excited to bring on our very special guest. Oh my gosh. Some of you may already know her, but if you don't, get ready to fall in love. Hello.
Hello, Marshall. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I've watched the show quite a few times. In the last few years, you were really a godsend during pandemic times. So it's nice.
As well. I mean, for me as well, just because it kind of kept me on the same path of talking about history.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I'm so happy to be here.
So, Mary, for those folks that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Mary Pappenhausen. I am the marketing director over at Zia Records. And so I've been doing that for a dozen years now, actually, which is crazy to think about.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I am a native Arizonan, actually. So I love watching the show for all of your Arizona facts and history in general. So was born in Phoenix. I grew up in Northeast Arizona in a small town, which you might love, called Pine Top.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah. So Not a, and in my life of music and things, I've just done a lot. Been around, in record stores, distribution, music. It's the passion. So, but I love the combination of getting to do what I do in Arizona, because Zia Records to a lot of people is an institution. And so I feel very blessed and lucky to kind of do the combination of things and work for a company that's been around for so long. You and I have talked about this, like history of anything is interesting. So I get to do kind of a local history at the same time as doing music history in everything that I do. So.
Well, and it was so fun. I'm sure it'll come out in the trivia that I know as I was reading, it was suddenly like people that I know were popping up in stories. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that they had connection to Zia. So, I mean, it's been so much fun learning about kind of how one business can kind of spurn so many, so many folks kind of grew out of that and went on to bigger, different things.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, I think that's the culture of music and the culture of what Arizona and Phoenix in particular is. I think a lot of people will agree that in Phoenix, it is what you make it. You have to build it and you have to make it happen. And then once you do, everybody comes in and they continue to make it happen and build it out. So, and at times it's like we're our own beautiful secret, but the word gets out. And,
right.
And I can't tell you, when I go back, the history, my origin of knowing people like yourself or so many people is thanks to music and thanks to record stores. Our mutual friend that I met you through record store, through there's always a connection back for me to music or the stores and the people that make those things happen. So,
well, it's always about the people.
Mm-hmm. Always, yeah. I mean, nothing lasts.
Uh-oh, Mary, you froze. Oh, no. So, all right. Well, she is unfreezing. So, that was the fun. We've been kind of talking about this for quite some time and plotting and looking at the questions. And so we're going to have a lot of fun this evening as we get ready to talk about kind of Zia and kind of its influence across Arizona and even having impact on the nation as we explore Zia all through trivia. Now, as we get ready to do some trivia, now,
sorry about that.
Up there you are.
In a strange turn of events, my power just went out.
Oh my gosh.
It's a dark mode here. Not sure. We'll get a candlelight going.
Oh my gosh. The beauty of doing things live, you never know what's going to happen. And there you go.
That is one I did not expect. So anyway, sorry, I don't know what I missed there, but.
So I'm just talking about how it was really kind of fun talking about how Zia had such an impact locally, but also nationally. And that's one of the things that will pop up in the trivia. And so I was just starting to talk about kind of, the way we do trivia here is a little different than if you've done bar trivia, where it really is focusing on just the answers. But the beauty of what we do here at Happy Hour is it really stresses the story or the answer. What is it? Why is that the answer? And that's what I think that's where I think all the fun comes from, is getting to share that. And so many people watching, you can chime in with your stories as well, because we love to hear those. Now, as we get ready to do it, what we'll do is we'll go through, wow, look at you.
This is the inventiveness of being in Arizona that we're talking about. You're going to for yourself. So this is probably the strangest trivia people experience this month with you.
I know if I should turn my light down so we can all be like by candlelight. So,
thank you all for being patient. Anyway, sorry.
So we're going to be doing some trivia. And so we'll go through the trivia. We'll go through the multiple choice answers. So that way no one gets scared if you don't know the answer, because it's one of those. And then we'll take a little bit of an Arizona music break. And I think Mary will even be surprised about the music history that we're going to talk about. So anyway, so let's get started. All right. So question 1, where does the name Zia come from? A Pakistani actor. B, a character in the book Red Pyramid, an amazing Italian restaurant, or D, the New Mexico flag? So where do you think the name Zia comes from? All right. Moving on to question. Hey! And there we go. All right. So what year was Zia Records founded? Was it A, 1977, B, 1980, C, 1983, or D, 1992? So you've got a wide breadth of dates to choose from there. So what do you think was the year that Zia was? I don't like to hear you go, because you should already know the answer. All right, moving on to question 3. Where did Zia's first stock come from? Was it A, library discards, B, the owner's collection, C, thrift stores, or D, local musicians? All right, so where do you think those first stock items came from for the first Zia record store? And where was that first record store? Was it A, Phoenix, B, Tempe, C, Tucson, or D, Las Vegas? All right, so question 5. Who currently owns Zia Records? A, the original owners, B, 4 accountants, C, the employees, or D, Roger Klein? So who do you think out of those 4, who do you think actually owns Zia Records at this moment? Question 6. Zia had a record label called A, Grand Records, B, Singing Wind, C, Desert Sounds, or D, Epiphany? What do you think Zia record label, what was it called? All right, question 7. How has Zia changed the indie record store market? A, creating vinyl exclusives. B, the first buy, sell, trade record store. And there should be a big period right there. All right, C, commitment to local. Or D, being awesome by doing all of the above. All right, so question 8. Who has not been an employee of Zia? Robin Wilson, B, Kimber Lanning, C, Alice Cooper, or D, Murs? Who of those folks do you think was not an employee of Zia Records? Question 9. What band has Zia supported? A, MC Magic, B, Linkin Park, C, Jimmy Eats World, or D, Sepultura? Or E, all of the above? And then when is Record Store Day? Is it A, today, meaning you missed it? B, tomorrow? C, April 23rd, or Saturday, May 7th? So when do you think National Record Store Day is? All right. Well, you are locking in your final answers. We're going to talk a little bit about some Arizona music history. And so, I've been obsessed by Disney for quite some time. And so we're going to talk about this gentleman, Ferde Grofe. So, it was probably the first Arizona music that as a youth I came in contact with was when I was forced to listen to in elementary school his Grand Canyon Suite, which ultimately won an Oscar for Walt Disney. They did a fly through the Grand Canyon that was timed to the music. And that Oscar was back in 1959. But he also did a very little known record here in Arizona as well, called Valley of the Sun Suite. It was actually commissioned by Salt River Project to basically be a musical telling of itself, of the Salt River. And it was the only recording of it exists it was done by the ASU Orchestra, recorded by a company that later became Canyon Records. And the only copies were given off to dignitaries and the musicians. So it's extremely hard to even get a copy of it. But one of the things that I love about this is that I love Valley of the Sun Suite, which was world premiered at Mask of the Yellow Moon. There was this big debate on should the youth of the high schools be the first ones to play this for the world to hear, or should it be the Phoenix Symphony? And so the youth won out. They got to play it, being directed by Freddie Groffet. And I actually was able to chat with a woman who was living in Scottsdale at the time, and she was a violinist. And she said, it was such an amazing thing to be a young woman and having this world famous conductor standing in front of you, giving you direction. The other thing I think is cool. So this recording is the first stereo recording in Arizona. It was actually done for 2 radio stations. And since they had 2 microphones for each radio station, they just recorded both tracks. And so that's how they got the first stereo recording in Arizona. Oh, as I say recording, I don't know if I think listening. You could listen to it in stereo. So it was the first stereo on AM radio for Arizona. So lots of music history wrapped up in one little album, Valley of the Sun Suite. And I love Mask of the Yellow Moon. So any chance I get to talk about Mask of the Yellow Moon, I enjoy. All right. So now we're ready for some answers and some magic. So Mary, where does the name Zia come from?
If you guessed the New Mexico flag, you're right.
If you didn't, you're wrong.
If you didn't, unfortunately, you're wrong. But now you know. Yeah, so a lot of people, obviously, that are familiar with New Mexico and the state flag know Zia. So it's a very New Mexico thing. A lot of people are like, oh, do you have stores in New Mexico? No. Just Brad Singer apparently really liked the Zia logo. And it's a really cool thing because it really does incorporate a lot of what the Southwest is, in honor of the tribes in New Mexico. It's fire, water, earth, air. It's the 4, and so it's a Zia. That's a Zia, guys. There's been rumors of other people it might be named after, or Zia is also aunt in Italian. So. But truly, it's the Zia from the flag, and that's the original logo for Zia Records. So when you go back, there's a couple really cool photos of the very, the first Zia locations, and you can see that Zia logo there.
Indeed. All right. So what year was Zia Records founded?
In 1980. That gentleman there that you see on the screen, that's Brad Singer. And he was the founder of Zia Records. There's a little sign there that says Tone Set, and that's an old local band. So the other thing about Zia is that it's always been a very big supporter of local music and local bands. So this is a really great photo, and kind of you can get the vibes. You've got the police banner behind him, a local CD. Brad's behind the counter there. It's really, really cool. So this year marks 42 years of Zia.
Wow. That's pretty dang cool.
Yeah. So earlier when I was talking about, I really am honored sometimes to, most of the time, to live and work in an institution. You know what I mean? It's an Arizona icon for a lot of people. And so many people have their own stories about Zia and their experiences and what music did they get turned on to? Who did they meet? Did they fall in love there? So many stories that come from the history of Zia.
Indeed. All right.
And just to note, that's for the listeners and the viewers, that's New Times. They did a really great piece about the history of Zia a couple years ago for our 40th anniversary. So thanks to New Times for these photos that they were able to pick up.
Tracking them all down. So
Yeah.
where did Zia's first stock come from?
It was all Brad Singer's collection. It was his record collection that he started the first store with, and that's the man himself there in his cool looking nudie suit.
I know. Well, you know, it's so funny because I didn't realize that he loved nudie.
Oh, he loved nudie suits. He was a big Graham Parsons fan, and so the Graham Parsons influence, of course, the nudie suits, the look, the vibes, the everything, you know. And for some people, you can see it right away, you know. I had a friend, his name's Lou Toloni, that I used to work with, who's great and lived with Brad for a little while. So he's got some stories too. I never had the pleasure of meeting Brad Singer.
I didn't either, but he sounds like quite the character from everything that I've been reading and from the various stories that we hear about him and just kind of some of the shenanigans that would happen at Zia.
Well, I think there was 2 photos ago where it looks like there are a bunch of cool guys outside of a car in front of a record store. So shenanigans, I'm sure. There's always something going on.
Indeed. All right. So where was the first Zia record store?
Phoenix. We talked about this. Some people think it's Tempe, but it really was Phoenix in 1980. It was located at 19th Avenue and Camelback, which is exactly where our 19th Avenue and Camelback store is now. But it had a long history of moving around that area of Phoenix. It started on 19th Ave and Camelback, then moved over to 7th Ave and Camelback right by my florist over there, then to 19th Avenue and Indian School. And then in 2012 now, we moved over to 19th Ave and Camelback, right where our location is today. It's the curve of where the light rail is.
Yeah, it's right there at the turn. So
yeah, so it's really cool to think about. Like it literally is not moved within 4 square miles of the original space that it was in.
All right, so there's that. Are there other Zia records around other than just those in Phoenix?
Well, we've got Tempe, Chandler, Mesa, and North Phoenix, which is 25th Ave and Thunderbird, which has been there since the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then in 1992, we went to Tucson. They opened Tucson locations. Brad loved Tucson, which kind of explains it when you think about him loving Graham Parsons in the desert. Tucson's always had that, you know, that vibe. And so a lot of good music came out of there. He supported that local scene with a lot behind him. So I've heard really, really great stories out of Tucson, especially with bands like Giant Sand and How Gelb, having a lot of reverence for Brad Singer. And then in 2005, we opened up our Vegas store, and then we have 2 in Las Vegas. So 2 in Vegas, 1 in Tucson, and 5 in Phoenix.
Wow.
So you go from 1 location in Phoenix in 1980 to 8 now in 2022.
Across 2 states.
Across 2 states, yeah, which is big. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah, the people of Las Vegas really needed a new record store, an indie store. And so crazy to think that we've been there 17 years now too. So
and I'm sure there it's all about supporting local as well, which that brings us to question number 5. Who currently owns Zia Records?
It's very exciting to be able to talk about this, that it is now employee owned. That's recent to this year. You know, over the history, Brad, of course, from 1980 until he passed away in 1998, was the owner. It moved to his family, then it moved to local investors and accountants. So that's where we get that option. That we're all, like I said, based in Arizona and supporting record stores, and was very important to them, got us through a lot. And then just recently, we went to an employee stock option, which is really rare and really exciting for us to be able to talk about. You know, everybody that works there, I've been there for 12 years. It's not a rarity to find people that have been working there anywhere from 5 to 25 years, you know. Right. So we've given a lot to it. So it's nice to have it truly be ours. It already felt like ours, you know. We've always been given a lot of autonomy to do what we want at Zia. And
Well,
so
and I
it's
think
really
that
a
was
thing.
that was really some of the. I mean, as I was looking back at some of the stories, that really it was kind of like everyone was kind of like left to their own devices. It's like going, hey, if you want to create something, go create it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that thing I was talking about with Phoenix. I've talked to people, Kimber Lanning, who we both know and love, that kind of mentality that Kimber has, and a lot of people that build out things in Phoenix, is you have to do it for yourself, and you have to be ready to be nimble, deal with a lot of weird elements when the power goes out, or when
Exactly.
whatever, and that's the other thing about Zia is the flexibility to last 42 years through a lot of different financial times, a lot of different situations. It's because we can adjust really quickly. That's always going to be the beauty of an indie, and people in a small group that get to talk and say, how do we do this? How do we fix, or how do we grow? And so we've continued to do that. And that's because of every single person that works there. Every voice matters. And from the clerk that just got hired to the CEO or the CFO, and so we listen to ourselves and to our customers.
Right. And allowing people to be individuals.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and bringing them in for their own talents. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing I think is so great about Zia is you can find so many diverse staff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's always going to be, that's what I gravitate to in music, arts, and culture. The thing about music, movies, there's no one style for anyone. Life is about variety and representation of all of those things and how we express ourselves. And it's just really fun. This is why I've never been pulled away from music in record stores, because on any given day, you can have 16 different conversations about 20 different things,
Right.
You can talk to the people about metal, and then you can talk to a person about classical. Then you can talk about somebody who knows every single Criterion film or knows all the collectible toys. It's always a good conversation,
Right. People bringing their passions and sharing them.
Yeah, and we love that. That's the all of our staff is amazing in what they know. Everybody has a specialty.
Right.
So.
All right. So question 6, Zia had a record label. What was it called?
They did. It was called Epiphany, which is a pretty great name in itself. I can only imagine what this is for Brad Singer. At the time, early 90s, so much development of music. The 90s itself, it is a gold mine of music. And especially when we start to think about the early 90s, late 80s, the music that was happening nationally, but also in Arizona. Early 90s, you've got the beginning of the Refreshments with Roger Clyne, Gin Blossoms. Both bands go on to be just massive, Dead Hot Workshop at the time. Just a lot of cool things happening, and a lot of bands. And as we all know, Phoenix has always kind of been treated like a odd stepchild to a lot of people across. When it comes to music, people just think, oh, it must all just be cowboy music and country out there, or mariachi. You know what I mean? So I can only imagine what Brad Singer's like talking to these guys in these bands, and one day he had an epiphany. And so that's not what I can assume. And such a great name. We can talk about.
It really is. I mean, it can fit any style of music. I mean, that's the beauty thing.
Yeah. And so a lot of people obviously love Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers. He started with the Refreshments. That's the first album and first band on Epiphany is the Refreshments. And that album was really hard to find, for a lot of people. Still is. And the amazing John Dixon. I want to shout out to John Dixon, the music historian.
Indeed. I mean, we both talk about he's like our go-to person. Like, anytime there's a music question, it's like go to John first.
Yeah, and John knows. I mean, John's got the whole catalog of Epiphany and was there from the beginning of that label and was friends with Brad for years. And so he is a part of that history, and I always like to talk about him. So
I agree. And
Johnny D.
to talk about Johnny D is a good day.
Yes, so he's a part of that history, and it's an important part of Arizona music history.
I'm bummed because he does sometimes have like record sales,
Yes, he
They
does.
always happen to be when I have another event at like the same time. It's
Yeah,
like you must have access to my calendar. And I'm like,
yeah, you should.
someday, I promise him, I will show up at his record store, and who knows what I'm going to be able to find.
Yeah, his archives go on and on and on, and he was a big part of that history piece, and really filling in the blanks for what we didn't know, because like I said, he's been there the whole time. So
Right.
he's wonderful. And so Epiphany is also connected to Johnny D in my head, and all of those great bands, because if you really think about it, that started the spotlight on Phoenix. Because before then, I mean, of course, Waylon Jennings and the history of the 50s, 60s, 70s, we had certain stars like Waylon, but the 90s really kind of said, oh, Phoenix is a rock town too. And that changes a lot of things for a lot of people. And from,
As well as we got the whole punk scene that was here as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, there's including like Billy Maxwell, who was the first
Yeah.
female country western recorded star,
Yeah,
was here in Arizona. So I mean, we
That's
have such an amazing music history here.
we really do. And it just goes on and on and on, and you talk about punk rock, Sun City Girls. A lot of people love to talk about Sun City Girls. We have an old flyer at the office for, tickets available at Zia for Sun City Girls, and a lot of those punk rock shows and things. That's the other cool thing, is the 80s and 90s, the old flyers that, you could go to the record store and buy a ticket to these shows. You didn't have to go to the grocery store or whatever the ticket line was at the time.
Right. Or stand outside of Dillard's or whatever.
Yep.
Which,
Yeah. Dillard's Gold Waters before that, right?
indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right. So how has Zia changed the indie record store market?
Well, it's by being awesome. That was my first answer.
It was. And it's like, okay, well, then that's why we had to come up with other things, that they were not just awesome, but what makes them awesome. So
Yes.
that was the fun of it.
And it really is all of the above. In the last few years, we've started creating our own vinyl exclusives, which is a interesting and fun game to be in when vinyl production is a little tricky in the last 5 years. But so we do that, and we really were like, Zia was like the first buy sell trade place where you could exchange things. Other places like Buffalo Exchange, of course, is another important Arizona institution in the buy sell trade. Bookman's, of course, as well. But Zia really, I mean, when you are an owner and you bring in your own collection, that is the base. Like, I can buy, I can sell, I can trade you my stuff, that mentality. And it's a huge portion of what keeps us always fresh and always revolving, but also in a beautiful way, historic. Somebody can bring in their mom's old records, and then in turn, a 20-year-old will pick up some Paul Anka for $1 or something and get turned on to these things. So it's like a constant movement of product and just learning, and it keeps it affordable for people, a way to learn. If you're not very good at returning things to a library, Zia has a better option.
Although, Phoenix Library now no longer has fines.
Wow, that's impressive.
So, yeah, I want to say, I think every library in town no longer has fines, which is pretty cool.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, but in that term, that's how a lot of
But
people.
they also have
There have
records.
been so many people in my experience at record stores that just like go buy a bunch of stuff, they try it all out. What they don't like, they bring it back. That's the beauty of flexibility and learning, and just we are that for them. We can be on hand.
And I'm very guilty of that, of just going through and pulling things off because of the album covers,
Yep.
and going off and listen to them. And sometimes you have a great find.
Yep.
Other times, not such a good find, but it's a good experience.
Yeah, it's all about learning and experiencing things. That's what it is. It's an experience. It's a cultural, when you go to the record store, it's an experience. It really, and the vibes are cool, man. You can buy incense for all of these. We try to always make it really inviting too, the shift. A lot of people are intimidated by record stores. It kind of had that stigma for a long time, but it's really been our true mission to be like, all are welcome, and let's talk about everything. You should never be intimidated when you walk into a record store. It's the place where you can be open and be yourself and talk about all the weird things you like. So,
Well, exactly. I mean,
you
that's
know,
what I mean. Well, you know, and it's funny because it's like when I do Ignite, one thing I'm going to talk about is meeting Rusty Warren by flipping through thrift store albums and
mhm.
finding this album that was recorded in Phoenix by a Phoenix musician, and I had never heard anything, and that launched a whole friendship.
That's wonderful.
With
Yeah,
music.
like
You never know where that's going to go.
yeah, you can keep digging. There's a story behind everything, especially in thrift stores and things in Phoenix. You'll find like all the old KDKB compilations or all the radio comps from over the years in Phoenix. Phoenix has always been a really strong rock market, country market. It was that beauty of the spotlight's not on us, but we have a lot of great, talented, educated, intelligent people here making music and doing things. They're just not New York, LA, Nashville.
But we've never been
Always make
those. We always kind of, I mean, it was funny because going back through some of the old newspapers, it's crazy because it's like almost everybody had live music like back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that we're going back to that, where so
Yeah.
many coffee shops are now, it's like now have live music going on in them, and other venues as well that you might not expect to find live music. There it is.
Yeah, to think about. I mean, for me, especially in the mid '90s, is my first experience at Zia, and being able to go to shows all over Phoenix. It's always you could go to a show every night for forever in Phoenix. In the Tempe area, you could go to Gibson's, Hayden Square, Electric Ballroom, all of these places, and they just grow. Then they turn into the Red River Opry, into the Marquee, just in the Tempe area. And now you think about Phoenix with Crescent Ballroom, Van Buren, Valley Bar. And like you said, coffee shops, the engagement of music is so important in public space and in for-profit areas.
Right.
Because when a band comes through, they usually want to stop at a record store and or a coffee shop and then go play the venue. So
Right.
And music's always been a huge important part of Arizona, whether in a cinematic Monument Valley Westerns way to a lot of people or the Grand Canyon Suite.
Right. Exactly. Or going back to like Canyon Records, just documenting that cultural music of indigenous folks. I mean,
so. Our Carlos Nakai is one of those artists of Arizona that put Arizona music on a map in a folk and world way. And Canyon Records is one of those that's like a field recording, It's historical preservation in a lot of ways. So it's important. And that story about the Suite of the Valley of the Sun is really cool. I
was so excited to. So I found out about it because it basically premiered at Valley of the Masuela Moon. And then at one point, because whenever I'm looking for something, I get obsessed and I mention it to anyone and everyone. And so all of a sudden at one point, my friend Jenny calls me and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Nothing." She's like, "You're coming to visit me, aren't you?" I'm like, "Sure." She hands me this envelope that's probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. It is a photocopy of the handwritten score for Valley of the Sun Suite.
Wow, that's fun.
So then the mystery was like, okay, well, how did this ever appear? How was this created? And so SRP, for I think it was their 95th anniversary, had this Phoenix Symphony play it.
Ah, that's a great callback. That's perfect.
And so it was this great thing. And so at that point, I did a blog post about it. And then this guy from California said, "Hey, I see you have that. I've already Venmo'd you some money. Photocopy it and send it to me." So I guess he's part of a whole group of folks that they take historical music and do somewhat of an updated notion of it. And so he then toured it around California, having these youth symphonies play it.
That's so cool.
And I love the idea that is going back to that original of having the youth from the high school play it. That's who is now playing it around California.
That's so cool. Yeah. So, nice that Salt River Project also remembered that it's because of the Salt River that piece got made. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much Arizona history just kind of infused in that one album.
That's so cool. I love it.
Indeed. All right. So who has not been employed with Zia Records? Because pretty much everyone else I know has.
Right. This is Alice Cooper, who I wish had worked at Zia Records. I wish he worked there now.
You know, it's never too late. Maybe he's willing to take a part-time job.
He's more than welcome. We will have him as our metal and rock historian on site. So, but
Fashion advisor.
yeah, a lot of people have seen Alice throughout the years. He likes to golf and he likes record stores, so it's part of that thing. But the other people that were included in that list, Robin Wilson, we posted. He's from the Gin Blossoms, so call back to both Brad Singer getting him on a label and a job, 2 different jobs there. Murs, who's a great rapper, he's a hip hop artist from Tucson. Another significant person. And then we talked about Kimber Lanning too. So Kimber and Brad worked together in those early years, and Kimber went on to open Stinkweed, which is another Arizona institution icon and an important part of what record stores are in Arizona and the country, really. But
Right.
Same kind of thing for Kimber. She took her collection. She did the model that her friend Brad and mentor started her own store called Stinkweed. So we started that out in Mesa, I believe, and then moved to Tempe. Tempe was my first experience at Stinkweeds on Apache out there.
Yeah, actually, I remember that store. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now, I can't remember when they moved over to the Camelback and Central location. I can't remember how long it's been now, but that's where they are now. And
Right.
so, I mean, we're neck and neck for anniversaries too. So,
And then, and I love that then Kimber also has gone on to do local first, about kind of that same kind of mentality about treat local with honor, and doing that same thing now on a statewide of really trying to encourage folks. It's like, buy locally, support local, because
Absolutely.
you're paying your neighbor to be able to eat food, be artistic, creative, and grow and thrive.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. What she created in that is the thing about record stores is it's indie record store. That indie part is called independent and creating your own thing. And I'll harken back to this again, but if you're a Phoenician and you're an Arizonan, you're going to have to make it happen for yourself. And you do. And how you do that is by having employees that are from here and working with companies and people and community that are your neighbors, So local first is one of my favorite things that's ever developed out of this situation. And so that mentality of DIY, do it yourself and make it happen. This is what can happen. And I just recently went to the Local First Good Business Summit to be around 250 other businesses, nice. And everybody's like, oh, Zia, So it can be the accountant firm, it can be the brownie people, it can be whoever, but everybody's connected in this town. And as you said, I think I don't have the numbers in my head, but you really do support your neighbor when you go into a local record store or any local business. So
right. See, if we had Kimber on, she could tell us all the numbers about
yes, she could. Yeah.
Yes, she could. We just know it happens.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. It's really great. So I love that mentality. She's just to think about the origins of where that came from. And you and I also talked about Steve Wiley, who is an icon in himself, who passed away a few years ago. He also was at Zia and started Hoodlums Records, which a lot of people consider beloved. So shout out to Steve as well, and being innovative and creating his own thing. It's all about creating your own thing, and being open and taking in all the ideas from creative people in your neighborhoods and your community. So
yeah, that is such an Arizona thing. Create it.
Yeah, you have to be. You have to be a survivalist.
So, very, very much so.
Limited resources, you got to make it work.
Indeed, all great. So, what bands has Zia supported?
All of the above here. Oh, I think we put Sepultura twice on here, but I think you switched it. But Gin Blossoms, Refreshments, Lincoln Park, Jimmy Eat World.
Well, I was worried. I have it spelled right, so I spell checked it and then threw it in. So the Gin Blossoms was part of that as well. It's just me and my fingers.
Yeah. So, I mean, the amount of local bands that have been supported through Zia throughout the years is in the hundreds, in the, in the thousands probably at this point. Um, Brad Singer and Johnny D is another example of how we learned this history. But the compilations that they used to do, 1989 to 92, he started putting together local compilations on cassettes, and they have these super cool like desert vibe artwork to them. And it was really interesting when fast forward to 2007, 8, 9, when Record Store Day is created. The first one happened in 2008 now. 2008, yeah. Brian Faber, another amazing human that I had the pleasure of working with and knowing for a very long time, he was running Zia Records. And for that first initial Record Store Day, he's like, let's revive the compilation. Let's support local. And so from the 1989-92 version of what Brad Singer was doing on tape, with donations going to the Boys and Girls Club, fast forward to 2009, Brian Faber reinvigorates that. And I get to work on that project the second year onward with him. But that's another thing that you and I talked about, like Record Store Day. We're like, we're Arizonans. We don't trust anything that anybody tells us. We're going to do something for ourselves. We'll support this thing, but we're going to make our own thing at the same time. So from that, we created the You Heard Us Back When local compilations that featured anywhere from 20 to 40 bands. And we did 10 of those in a row. We are thinking about what the future is for that kind of thing. But like I said, over the history, we're still supporting local bands all the time. With consignment that we do, people can come to us and with whatever they got, really.
Right.
And there's always developing things, So it's kind of a foreign concept to some new artists and brands, but a lot of people go, oh, I can go to Zia and see if they'll sell my record there. So we're still doing it and still supporting both local bands and local community. And we continue to do a lot of fundraising and connecting with nonprofits in every way we can as well. We really like youth programs and things because music and culture is music is a young thing. It will keep you young in a lot of different ways. Right. So I could go on and on about these bands.
All right. So we mentioned Record Store Day.
I did.
When is Record Store Day?
Record Store Day. It's happening this Saturday, April 23rd. And Record Store Day, this is its 15th anniversary. So when it says 15 years, I'm like, okay, what is the math again? I can't believe I've been around for every one of these. But it's been pretty incredible to watch throughout the years. It's a celebration of record stores across the whole world now. It started, like I said, with a very small amount. At first it was 8 releases. One of them, I think 2 of those 8 were Metallica, one on CD and one on cassette. And Metallica was the first band to really support Record Store Day out in Rasputin, which is in the Bay Area of California. They had done an in-store that year. So from then until now, at the beginning it was 8 titles. This year we have 400 releases. Yeah, so it tells you, it really, Record Store Day is incredible to think about the development of it, because it was really, at the time it was recession, 2008, 2007, Tower closes, 2008, 2009, we're dealing with a huge recession. Yeah. And being like, how are we going to survive this? The co-founders of that, it's a group of people that really did that and came up with this day to celebrate record stores, put out special releases, and just bring the attention on the spotlight back to what record stores are. And so from that day forward, it's really taken off, and it's been our busiest day of the year every year ever since. And
well, yeah, no, I've got friends who have their hit list
of
what they're looking for. And so they're going to get up at the crack of dawn.
Yes, they do. Yeah. We see people sometimes lining up at midnight and just waiting, it's intense, and it's really beautiful though, and connecting in a lot of ways. It's
Well,
just
again, because you have all these
all,
people who are gathering and they all have the same passion of music.
yes,
So
they
I'm
do.
sure that, I mean, the stories that must get told in that line as people are waiting.
Yeah, there's a lot of line buddies that develop, and a lot of competition, of course. We try
Oh,
to
of
keep
course.
it we try to keep it as civil as possible, and telling we communicate high communication with our customers in those lines, and get them donuts, make them happy in the morning, tell them to be cool to each other, treat each other with respect. This isn't some like Walmart Black Friday shit where we're wanting anybody to die over records. So, and it really does build out community. And people have respect for it, and they're into it. I can't imagine how many like numerous connections have been made in those lines, and the people having conversations. I've seen strangers talk to each other in line and say, "If I don't get this, will you get this for me?" And
Oh, like
or
alliances. Oh my gosh, how cool
or
is that?
yeah, or on their way out, they're like, "Oh, I got it," or "I didn't get this." And it's like, "Well, I got it, but I don't need it." That
Oh,
communication starts to happen, and just the amount of special projects, special events. There's been hundreds of bands that have done in stores on Record Store Day and supported. They have ambassadors every year for Record Store Day. Iggy Pop, St. Vincent, Foo Fighters. All of these bands have done something for Record Store Day over the years, and so it's massive. I just heard a really good NPR piece yesterday on it, on the jazz side of things, and
oh, nice.
this year there's a Record Store Day book out about the history of Record Store Day and all of so many stories that come out of it. But so we at Zia we'll open the stores early at 9 on Saturday. We'll have all of those exclusives. We have 2 of our own vinyl exclusives coming out.
So what does Zia have coming out?
We have a couple of exclusives that actually come out on Friday. The Decemberists is one of the bands. I think that indie pop smash cocktail would sound really good with that Decemberist. So, and then Red Cross is an old punk band. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one,
I've heard the name.
which is
Yeah.
a really cool piece. It's their first record. It's on Hellfire Red record, Color record. So those are our 2 this year. And we do those every month. We'll have a Duke Ellington record that is coming out next month. This is insider information. But anything from Billie Holiday, Duke Ellington to Red Cross to Bad Brains, we do a lot of our own stuff that way.
Right.
And I'm especially proud of our own merch. When I talked about we make Record Store Day our own. We don't just take in what somebody's going to tell us. We make it. We put our stamp on it and do our own thing. So we have 12 different merch items that are brand new. It's a really cool theme of like a desert band. So we got a Gila monster, a jackalope, a scorpion, and another creature that are all in a band, in a Southwest band. And all of our merch kind of plays off of these 4 characters. And so it's very Zia of us. It's original. It's desert vibes, and it's weird. And so
Indeed.
hats and shirts and slip masks and posters and all kinds of stuff. And if people, the mornings are usually pretty crazy for people, but we try to engage in the rest of the day with live DJs that are local, community partners, Phoenix Children's Hospital, Tucson Medical Center, Positively Arts in Vegas. All of them are partners for us in the charity aspect that we do as well. When you go to the stores, you can donate your change, and it'll go to these nonprofits. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so we try to do that. There's just so many fun things that happen that we try to pull people in for. But in the afternoon, starting at 1, we're doing something a little different. At 1 o'clock on Saturday, when you go to the store, first 100 people will get a little cool Zia pack, little Zia goodie pack that might have a gift card or 2. Gift cards, coupons. We partnered with different local businesses, Changing Hands gave us some coupons to throw in those babies. And a whole bunch of other Majestic Theaters. We've got them coming out.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's the thing I try to, we all try to do, is to say,
Support each other.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the same community, and we have the same kind of customers and family and friends that we love. So anyway, so starting at 1, those are going to probably go fast. So, but that's for the people that aren't so much into those big crowds in the morning. We wanted to kind of gift people in the afternoon.
Understandable.
Yeah. So
I'm not a big crowd person either, so
yeah, we wanted to give something special to the people in the later afternoon to give them a chance. So there's some cool things. We got a very cool thing. It's a Zia branded Crosley turntable. And one lucky winner in one of those goodie packs is going to get that one. So
wow.
yeah, it's pretty cool. We just got surprises.
Indeed. So you never know what to expect on Record Store Day.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
So you should go check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Lots of good stuff happening.
Yeah, and you can go to any of the stores to do that. And there's so many things to look forward to.
Indeed. So I always like to end trivia with ask people, how did they do? Just because, I think it's kind of fun just to kind of challenge, but it's not about what you get right or wrong, but look at the fun that we've had talking about Arizona history. And so much. I mean, we've talked about a wide swath of business history, music history, and so much more. So Mary, thank you so much for persevering. I mean, through the lights going out, you were on it.
It's a strange thing, right? But again, this is a thing about being in Arizona. You got to deal with
it. You persevere. You're a survivor. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
And
happy Record Store Day. Thank you.
And happy Record Store Day, indeed.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Oh my gosh, wasn't that so much fun? So now you'll see why I always suggest not just how'd you do, but I always say, if you're on Facebook, there's that little share button down beneath. So click on that and let people know how much amazing history we have right here in Arizona. So from the vault, I thought we would kind of stick with the music theme. And so we're going to talk about, oops, I hit the wrong button there. I was like, why are we going backwards? So I think one of the unsung treasures of Arizona is the Musical Instrument Museum, which, if you've never been, is dedicated to world music and that experience. But I love that they have the experience gallery on the first floor. And so it really is a room where you get to play with all these instruments from across the globe, whether it's a drum, a xylophone called a different name that I can't pronounce. There's just so much to be had, and it's kid-friendly, it's adult-friendly, and it's so much fun to go and explore, learn about history, but then you see people playing these instruments, and now you get a chance to be in that room and do that exact same thing. And so not only do they have a huge gong that you can make vibrate, they have something that I wish I had, which is a theremin, which is one of those things that's like, so any horror movie you heard in the 50s, that was a theremin. And so I love that they have one of those, as well as I know they actually have a little exhibit for Clara Rockmore, who was the big musician on the theremin. So if you haven't been to the Musical Instrument Museum, I highly suggest a day trip. And, don't be surprised if you can't get all the way through the museum in a day, because it really is quite extensive and really a lot of fun. So now I'm asking you to share on Facebook so we can share the love, the history, and tell you all about next week. We have my friend Patrick McWhorter. He is currently with Arizona Citizens for the Arts, but he's done a lot of different things. So he is going to be our guest spot next week. So same bat time, same bat channel. And we're going to have a lot of fun with Patrick as well. Now, remember, if you have any stories you'd like to share, you can please throw them out, or you can also throw me off an email or something like that, because I love to hear from you, because that's, again, where we get some of our best ideas and stories are just folks saying, hey, did you know about this? So because we talked about Massive Yellow Moon, I am going to play a bit from Channel 8 talking about Mask of the Yellow Moon. But I always love to give a shout out to Chris and Cole, who did an incredible video, as well as PJ, my cocktail advisor. So let's hear a little bit about Mask of the Yellow Moon.
And speaking of extravaganzas, during most years between 1926 and 55, Phoenix College students joined those of the high schools in the Mask of the Yellow Moon, a music and dance pageant featuring literally a cast of 1,000. Staged at Montgomery Stadium on the Phoenix Union campus, the production often attracted national attention with themes of Americana and Arizona's history and heritage. A marvel of logistics, timing, and dramatic presentation.